Recording. Ooh la la, I have started the recording without my headphones. Oh, they're on. They're not working though. The drama, the drama. Okay, one moment, one moment, one moment. Now we're good. Hello, 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 test, test, test. Alrighty, let's get going. So first of all, thank you so much for your patience. I've been working hard, really, really hard. And it's just, stuff takes a while. And I don't want to sacrifice, how good the reading, like the quality of the reading for rushing things. So, my wait list has been getting bigger and bigger, larger and larger. And I've been having lots of live, follow-ups. Like I think you got a follow-up. Yeah. So I've been having lots of those. And yeah, it's been a very and I have my 4-day holiday too. Anyways, let's get into it. So let's go ahead and share the screen. Why don't we? Not why do not we? Forgetting English, which would be very bad for my job if I literally stopped speaking English one day. Hope that doesn't happen. Probably not, considering I talk non-stop all day for my work. Anyways, okay, so this is your chart. So by the way, I'm gonna go back and forth, and I didn't turn my timer on, so I have no idea. Okay. Boom. So yeah, so like we got a chart here with the Sun and Taurus in the 6th house. And one other thing just before I get started is that like sometimes like I will stand up, like I'll have it on this mode and I'll be like standing up and like walking. Like sometimes I think better when I walk, or like closing my eyes and meditating with crystals. Like I do all kinds of stuff, but like, the whole point is to get the reading as good as possible. So just letting you know that. And also I started doing chewing tobacco, just the Swedish kind, not the gross American kind, not to judge, but I'm just telling you that I am about to take one right now, and I just randomly started doing this, and I have these like little stints in my life where like I'll start doing something like this, and then I'll just like quit like randomly, just like start then just quit as random as I started. But yeah, these are like the more sexy kind, like lemon twist, like it tastes like a fruit. But yeah, so Taurus, 6th house sun with moon in Cancer. Okay, I love that combination. So domestic, so chill. I know a lot of people that have that. They go very well together. Ascendant in Sag. Oh, nice. You have a wow. Your chart is super similar to my dad's chart. That's crazy. My dad has Sag rising and Sun in Cancer, Moon in Taurus. So I knew I recognized this energy from somewhere. And then you got your Mars in Scorpio in the 12th, with 2 other planets there, Mr. Pluto and Mr. Saturn. And then you got that Aries Mercury. You got North Node conjunct Chiron. Interesting. On a descendant. South Node conjunct ascendant. I see that so much with Uranus. You got the money maker, Jupiter in the 2nd house. And yeah, some other stuff. Let's kind of piece them together now. What aspects? You got Moon opposite Neptune, Sun opposite Saturn, Venus opposite Pluto, Mercury opposite Pluto, and unaspected Mars. Alrighty. So there's not really much to say. I mean, you have your Venus and your Sun Taurus. I mean, like what to say about someone's sun sign. I kind of expect that about Taurus and how reliable and grounded it is, but that there's this risk of not taking enough risks in life, and just the real need to kind of like move towards that, and this, that, and the fourth. And I could go on forever about what it means to have Sun Taurus, but I reckon that most of my clients have read enough horoscopes to understand that part of themselves. Now, the question is, how does it, relate to having a Cancer moon? Well, it works really, really well because both of them are very, very, very linked to security. Now, Taurus, as you know, can be a little bit materialistic. It's very, it really Taurus is a sign of security and sure things, right? That's like why the old adage with Taurus is that a lot of them have trouble taking risks. Now, in your case, being that your ascendant is an adventurous Sagittarius, risk taking will play a role in your life. You'll be someone who probably really likes to travel, and who's very interested in different cultures, very open-minded, and but still stable within that, which is very nice to have that, because you have cardinal, fixed, and mutable for your big three, and then you're have every element, but you have 0 air. So I'll just tell you really quickly. I tell everyone this, and I get really good reports back. Do breath work. When you have no air in your chart, it can mean you can lack objectivity, and air is linked with like intellectuality and stuff. So it's not to say that you're not smart. No, it's just like it's better. Like when you lack air, it's like not being able to. It can make it difficult to see other people's perspectives, and yeah. So doing things that enable you, like breath work, is literally like hiking, doing things like that. Where you get out, where you're like literally like getting new oxygen, new clean oxygen into your lungs. So yeah, back to the Cancer moon thing. So Cancer and Taurus, they're both like I once said, like if I was to create the perfect mother, it should be like one of these 3 signs. Taurus, or have the big 3 that's of these 3 signs. Taurus, Virgo, Cancer. So the fact that you have a Cancer moon, it's going to make you very able to meet your own emotional needs, which is obviously a very positive thing. And at the same time, as it's always talked about in stereotype, the crybaby of the zodiac, the Cancer moon. But it's actually a really good thing, because the moon is in dignity, meaning it's at its strongest position in Cancer. And the reason being that Cancer moon people, they know how to meet their emotional needs, like I said. So when something happens, like let's say for example, like something difficult happens, right? The person with the Cancer moon will be able to like cry. They'll like cry and deal with the emotional, the energy, like the emotional energy right away, as opposed to repressing it, like someone who has like an air moon might do, and just kind of letting it pile up. So they deal with their emotions in the moment. Now the fact that's in the 8th house and your son's in the 6th house, that reflects this deep need to kind of like go within yourself in this lifetime and go through that death, rebirth, transformation archetype, which is also shown by your Mars in Scorpio. So you're definitely like a spiritual warrior. You're someone who's here to to do some real deep emotional healing in this lifetime. And it's also a very good indicator for high intuitive abilities to have your moon in Cancer in the 8th house, to be able to really sense the undercurrents of different situations. And you'll be very interested in anything like esoteric, anything that is related to like the grand mysteries of life. So you'll be the opposite of a shallow person, let's just say, a very deep person. Now, how that works with Taurus is that both of these signs are, like I said, they're very domestic. Cancer moon also gives like this emotional need for family. I was just talking to Cancer moon the other day, and yeah, there's typically a very, very deep connection with the family of origin, and also like, in the future, you're born in 84, so I don't know if you have kids, but kind of creating like family is very, very, very important, and also the childhood is very, very important. So if it's in the 8th house, it can relate to, doing, depending on how your childhood was, which, I see Black Moon Lilith down there. I don't see any planets. And I see it in Pisces, which is ruled by Neptune, your second. It can relate to kind of like going back in childhood and dealing with any type of like potential, I guess, difficulties that could have existed there, but I'm not really seeing that so far. We'll see what the rest of the chart shows. Now with like I was saying, with the Taurus and the Cancer together, it's like if you were a ship. I always give this metaphor. If you were a ship with two captains, your sun and your moon, they would both be going in very similar directions. They get along very well, and that also speaks to typically the parents having a similar message that they give to you, right? If you have to like write a paragraph or two about like what the main message or the main worldview or whatever is for your parents, it wouldn't be like so at odds, right? So yeah, but with this energy in general, like one of the big things when we look at your North Node in, where is it? It is, yeah, in Gemini. There's definitely a need to like take risks, kind of like expand yourself socially, and get kind of like the part of your like, because like small, like you're so like what can happen with South Node in Sag, which rules like your past lives and stuff, is that the person there can be tendencies towards being a little bit like not dogmatic, but very, very set on like your guiding principles and guiding philosophies. So the Gemini is kind of like that journalist, like social butterfly energy. And the fact that it's conjunct Chiron means that you're meant to be a healer of some sort. Or another way of looking at it is the fact that it's in the 7th house, like over here in the descendant, that you would be someone who is really looking to do lots of healing in the realm of relationships. So yeah, and 8th house also is a relationship house. So yeah, it can create like very, very intense relationships that are very, very faded also, where you experience like pain early in life, in kind of like those more romantic relationships that you then are able to, whatever work you do, I have no idea, but if you were someone who was a healer, 7th house also rules like your clients, so you'd be able to kind of like take everything you learn and help your clients with it. Now, Chiron in Gemini has to do with pain around, at some point in your childhood, potentially like not, with that Mercury square Pluto, not necessarily like being like trusting your own thought processes so much. Like maybe you were someone who thought in a very different way or had very different interests. Maybe you were like a lot deeper than like the other kids around you. So that could have contributed to like you thinking like maybe that the things you say are like the kind of like not. I get so many clients with Chiron and Gemini. It's very, very common, and yeah, it's really about like finding your authentic voice in this lifetime. Now, backtracking again, Sun in the 6th house, is definitely about living a life that is organized, a life where your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health is very important. And also where you're being of service to humanity in some type of way, and you see that also with the 12th house energies. Um, being a Taurus, it's fixed Earth, so Taurus tend to once they find that thing that they really like to do, they are able to really kind of continue on that path for the long term. Now, what happens here, though, and let's see what degree is it at. Yeah, it's like with the ascendant, in Sag, it's very, very different, right? Because it's all about taking risks. You have Uranus there, so like your outer personality is like in the way people project, like the way you project yourself and kind of the mask you wear, if you want to call it that, is going to be very, very different than what people like, what your true nature is, right? You'll come off as this, I guess you could say, somewhat eccentric in a good way, like kind of very individualistic person who beats the beat of their own drum, and it comes from past lives of being like that. But that's kind of where some of that pain can come from early on, when you're Sag rising with Uranus on the Uranus rising. You probably express yourself in a way that's very, very unique. You're not really interested, and you lack air in your chart, but having Uranus, which rules Aquarius on the ascendant, is going to kind of add and kind of help out that lack of air. So but then so that's one thing that we have to talk about in the follow-up, is like kind of how you deal with that, because like you'll be a lot more, like, as a Cancer moon, a lot more emotional than people probably think you are. People might look at you and see this kind of freedom loving, rebellious type of individual who sees life as just like a sequence of different adventures, and wants to travel and experience different types of philosophies and worldviews, and super like into like meeting people from different cultures, this, that, and the fourth, and who's deeply spiritual, and it it can just be at odds with that Cancer moon. So it's like these two different parts, but the Cancer and the Taurus, like I said, they get along very well. Now, having your moon in Cancer opposite Neptune, that can create issues around understanding your own emotions, I guess you could say, like having like a real like objective, and that goes back to the whole thing with the air, like a real objective kind of viewpoint of your own emotions, which can be very, very confusing when you're growing up, and can kind of create issues around self-esteem. And Neptune is about fog. It's like this high spiritual energy. So like when it gets integrated, it creates someone who can be very, very psychic, very in tune with high spirituality, and high spirituality, and very, very have like a very like prophetic, like an imagination that's just like boundless, basically, right? So yeah, definitely like you're a dreamer, but like you have to watch out for that danger of self-delusion, right? And also it can make one susceptible to like schemers and kind of like the energy vampire types. So that can, obviously create issues in love, right? Where it might be difficult to kind of have like that objective view of like, what does this person, like what is the true intention of the person, and this, that, and the fourth. It can create like a level of paranoia. And yeah, lots of misunderstandings can come from that, right? So yeah, it's one of the more challenging aspects you can have, and it kind of pushes one towards spirituality. And yeah, it's just like you're so sensitive, but like with a Neptune, you can be like like especially when young, like so like in tune with like the collective unconscious, and like the suffering of other people, and it can be a lot. So that's why, when you have all these 12th house planets, there's this big need, even as a Taurus, which will add lots of stability to this, to spend time alone, and to kind of understand, like like know that, like, your environment and the people that you're with have a super large effect on you. So yeah, self-deception can definitely like play a role. There can be like different insecurities and anxieties, and yeah, so like being victimized, misunderstood, rejected. So the big thing with this one is just like tuning into, higher, like really getting into spirituality, and really get like um you know like taking that route, basically. So what else can I say about that? So in the context of like how it relates to, like, the mother figure, which is usually represented by the moon, it can sometimes create like some confusion in that relationship. A lot of times when I see this, the person, like especially as a Cancer moon, they require like a lot of love, a lot of love when they were, a kid, and still to this day, right? A lot of love, a lot of attention. So when there's Neptune there, there can be some level of of confusion, and maybe like the mother, like some examples would be like the mother was like working a lot, or just like not as available as you needed her to be, basically. Now, let's see. Now there is a nice aspect with Venus, which would speak further to like this artistic ability, this love of the finer things in life. It makes one very, very, very affectionate, very lighthearted. Um, so that's very good. And Venus in Taurus is obviously, another. It's a Venus is in dignity, meaning it works best in Taurus and in Libra. So that's a very strong position for Venus to be in. And yeah, so in terms of love and relationships, you'd be someone who really is looking for, like with Venus and Taurus, like, and let's see what the aspects. It's opposite Pluto. So what happens, so Venus and Taurus, it likes things to be predictable, stable. Um, it Yeah, very like it really, like, as a Taurus sun yourself, like really wanting someone that like very, very reliable, but also at the moon where it is in Cancer, someone who is also very, like, who's in touch with their emotions, and who is able to give you like that level of love. Now with the Venus, right, opposite Pluto, and I have Venus square Pluto, so it's like I understand it very well. It can create situations in love, right? And also you have Venus trine Neptune, which is like one of the best aspects for like being like a super amazing creative mind. Like Neptune is like the imagination, the inspiration, and Venus over here is the, like the ability to like put pen to paper, or like put paintbrush to, you know like to paint, um to write the poem, to do whatever it is, right? So to have those two linked is an amazing thing. It's like having the inspiration, the imagination linked with the actual part of you that does the art. So, and then of course Taurus, very artistic sign in general. But yeah, with the love stuff, with the opposition with Pluto, it can create an energy where it's like you meet your shadow a lot through relationships, and that's also shown with the Chiron conjunct North Node and the Sun and all that, the seventh house. And a lot of people that have that, they can, it's almost like they love to, like, their love and their emotions and all that. It's almost like it can be like too intense for people. And yeah, so there can be like difficulties in that area of life. It's like the energy of, like, there can be like obsession, but like it's an opposition, so it can actually like come from the opposite direction. Like some people that have this, they have like stalkers, and there's like this very obsessive energy that, and this pressure that comes, because there's this, with relationships, there's typically this very like instant attraction, like very like intense instant attraction based relationships, where you feel like really, really karmically drawn to certain people, right? And it's very interesting. It's like very it's like very hard to explain, but the main key with that is that Venus represents self-love, right? They say it's the planet of love, but it starts with the self. So people who have Venus, in the hard aspect of Pluto, they may spend time dating like very dark people, because Pluto, rules like the darkness, the underworld, and kind of the shadow, until they really, really learn to kind of love themselves, right? And once that self love is achieved, then it can be channeled into something way more, like way more powerful, way more like the highest energy of love, that passion, that soul, two souls becoming one type energy, right? But at a lower vibration of this, there can be like jealousy, possessiveness. These are like themes that can play out in relationships, like suspicions, especially with like the moon in the opposite Neptune. So yeah, it can create lots of like very, very intense relationships that then lead you into that shadow work that you do. And a lot of people that have this, like when they're like kind of growing up or like starting their love life, I guess you could say, they like become very, very, very attracted and very, very attached very, very quickly. And it can sometimes freak the other person out. So it's like important to like, but it also creates like a lot of like attractive powers, and being Taurus, Venus Taurus, and being Taurus yourself, it's like that's a very attractive energy. So yeah, it's important for relationships you have to have like a equal share of power, um and where there's not these like back and forth power struggles, basically. So yeah, like there's a certain level, like in relationships, a certain need to like kind of learn to like let go, basically, right? Let go, surrender. A lot of times it takes like some painful experiences to really understand that, but yeah, I mean that's just kind of the karma. And especially with your North Node in the seventh house, you're really, really here to learn a lot of lessons around relationships. So, and this is another indicator, yeah, someone of like like needing to watch out for being taken advantage of in love, and yeah, like it can be a tough one. I'll be interested to hear what you say in the follow up in relation to that. So besides that, let's see. So then, let's over here. So with Mars, which also has lots of implications with love, it's in the 12th house. Now, Mars in Scorpio is another planet you have in dignity, meaning it's a very, very strong planet. So you have some your Venus is in dignity and your Mars is in dignity. So, like Mars in Scorpio is very, especially in 12th house, it's very, very psychic, right? It's like this built-in, you have like this built-in lie detector mechanism within you that is able to kind of like sense, when people are full of shit, when they're not. Let me switch back to my face. So yeah, so it can really give like a lot of spiritual power. But what happens when you have Saturn there too and Pluto there is that like that sense of, and it's in retrograde. Ooh, okay, yeah. So it's Mars in retrograde. So what happens with Mars and so this is like a very like it can be like kind of self-deprecating, self-sabotaging energy. And there can be like this Mars, which likes to be outward, right? The push can be inward, right? Mars is like that assertiveness function, and when it's pushed inward, there can be like inner rage or and let's see, and it's unaspected. So lots of people that have like Mars in 12th house, they they can just like, I always say they can just like do things that just like they do them and they're just like, why the fuck, like what did I just do? Why did I do that? Right. And karmically, the retrograde Mars, which is very rare, I think it's like 8 or 7% of the population have it. It has to do with in past lives either like underdoing or overdoing when it comes to like action. And I told you I have my chewing tobacco one. So based on what I'm seeing with South Node in the first house in a fire sign, I would assume that it was more like the overdoing, right? Now, let's see here. So yeah, a lot of times people who have Mars retrograde, they spend the first, not necessarily like 30 years, but like that that first like that growing up part of life where they're really kind of like that energy, right, is like I said before, it's so internal. So there can be like a large buildup, and then all of a sudden, like how Tauruses are, there can be like anger that builds up, and then it reaches a breaking point, and it's just boom, right? So it's important to channel that into like high spirituality, and it's another one of these things in your chart that's kind of like it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of like it's like a rite of passage almost towards spirituality, right? So I imagine that this could have been difficult earlier in life, but what happens, like, interestingly, is that it also creates someone, because you're Cancer Moon, who's very, very much in the past, right? um And what they can do is that they can project, so this is really interesting, past life roles on different people in their current life, right? And like, for example, like let's say you're incarnating with like a sibling or something, like you might like act towards them, um act towards like the past life version of them, basically. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. And yeah, people who have that, they tend to like spend a lot of energy like reliving like past experiences internally. Um And yeah, there's like a big priority on like fulfilling, like I said, like the spiritual desires, and you have to also watch out for like neglecting like your body's physical needs as well. So yeah, this is another one that like really pushes one towards like that deep spiritual growth. And what else can I say? Sometimes in love, like with this energy, there can be like kind of with the Venus and Pluto, like just like trying like really hard. Um so yeah, like extending tons of energy, um where you're like trying to find people in this life that can mimic the past life stuff, if that makes any sense. And yeah, it's like kind of like about like enacting things that you weren't able to enact in prior lifetimes. So what can happen is that frustration can come in, and there can be overreactions to different situations. And since it's an aspect in Mars, meaning that it's not being like aspected, like it's almost like Mars, it's just like boom, you know. So the fact that it's retrograde is gonna, like if it was not retrograde, it may even be more difficult because you would just do things like you'd be extremely impulsive. But I think the retrograde kind of can pull that back. But yeah, like in love, it can make someone who like comes on too strongly, and that's shown in other parts of your chart too. So then the fact that it's unaspected, right, is it makes it a very untamed energy, right? It's like a wild horse, but it's like inward though. That's the thing. So like if you had like a non-retrograde Mars, it could like literally be like so like impulsive. It could be like almost dangerous. Um, so like when it comes to anger, Esmond, um, it's very important to find like a positive outlet for this energy, right? Because yeah, it can be very untamed. So in Scorpio, it's very obvious that that is spirituality. But while we're on the subject of the 12th house, you have Saturn there and Pluto there too. But what else can I say about Mars and Scorpio? Like on its own, it's just like yeah, it just probably just focuses in like so much energy into yourself, into your own like shadow work, and makes you like also like very aware of it, you know. But that obviously comes with time. So early on it can have someone being very dramatic. Also like obviously Scorpio, um, Mars is very strong sexual urges, but when it's retrograde, it can kind of be a little bit frustrated in that regard. And also like Mars and Scorpio are not like, it's like the last person you want to have as your enemy, basically. They just are very like you know how it is with Scorpio. They don't forget, like Mars and Scorpio doesn't forget anything. Um, and they also like to fight for the underdog. So like the best way to deal with it is to be of selfless service. That's like the best way to deal with any 12th house stuff. Now, what else can I say about Mars and Scorpio? Yeah, I mean, like your dream life is gonna be very intense. So like dream journaling could be something that's very interesting. Um, but like in the end, it's like a very driven energy. Someone who's very competitive, who likes a good challenge, um, and lots of willpower, and someone who like likes to test themselves. What else? What else? Yeah, and like I said before, like it's very it's a very there's so much magnetism to the Mars and Scorpio person, but because it's in a 12th house, it can be a little bit hidden. So it goes back to what I was saying before of like different parts of yourself being hidden from like what people like expect you to be. So yeah, super intense energy. And then it opposes, I mean, all the Scorpio energy is opposing your Taurus energy. So that's speaking about that access being very important. And basically like the axis, right? The axis are like the opposite signs. And let's see. So you have Sun, the opposite Saturn. It's basically just like the balance between like being very self-reliant, because you're a Taurus in this lifetime to learn the lessons of being self-reliant, of kind of like learning to like ground yourself and because like in past lives with the South Node and Sag, let's see what aspects it has. I hope this bit's not gross. I don't see any. I guess I just see Uranus, Chiron. Yeah. There's a like I get this past life vibe because I also have first house fire South Node of like just like being very like independent and very adventurous and like very maybe even like philosophical, religious, some something along those lines. But when like it's very much like about breaking conditioning, right? Breaking past life conditioning. And like because when you come into a lifetime with this type of energy, you might have like things that you're like, this is true, but like in this life it's like you're meant to like really go out and test those things, you know um the Gemini. Now back to the 12th house, with Saturn there, that is Pluto in the 12th house is like literally the ultimate it's like the ultimate like spiritual, like I always say that it's like about leaving behind the kind of materialistic world and like diving in. It's like leaving, like Saturn represents rocks, right? Rocks and solid structures. So it's about like leaving behind past life conditioning and anything that's like kind of too related to the material world, and like diving deep into like these like transpersonal, like the sea, I call it like the endless sea of oneness of Neptune. And your chart's really pushing you towards that. But this chart, there's lots of directions it's going. Lots of directions. But yeah, so back what I was saying with like Scorpio in Taurus is that Scorpio tends to like form alliances and rely on like external sources of power, while Taurus is all about self-reliance, all about finding all of that within themselves. Like and a good example would be like meditation, right? Or like learning like how to balance your energy and stuff of that nature, especially with that that moon in Cancer and opposite Neptune. There's definitely going to be something there around kind of, I don't want to say like learning to be your own mother, but like really, yeah, you're here to like really go deep into your own emotions and face shadow, which this is really like the chart of someone who's like meant to like really be like a teacher, a spiritual leader type, anything like that, and yeah, so with the Saturn, more about that. that can create all kinds of like phobias. It can create like lots of like, so I imagine your Saturn return, let's see what the aspects, opposite your sun, like that can, it can create like just by itself, like lots of like restrictions, lots of fears, phobias of the unknown. It can also create like lots of hidden enemies. Like people who have this, a lot of times they're like they have this like fear of like that complete surrender, right? That fear of that the hidden realms. And it kind of coincides with with Taurus, which likes things to kind of stay the same. So there's this big push between like a part of you that wants to kind of, which is happy with things kind of staying the way they are, but another part of you which is like really, really, really wanting to kind of like go towards like the stuff that might not feel so comfortable to you, but that might lead to the greatest growth, right? Yeah. I'm gonna take this out 1 second. Enough tobacco for me. Let me get a sip of water. It's good to drink water. I just spilled. So yeah, lots of it's been very interesting to follow because there's so many directions this chart's going. So yeah, that's one of the axis that one of the emphasis like one of the axes that are emphasized is the Scorpio Taurus. And yeah, literally like when you have planets in the 12th, it's just like all about surrender, letting go. And that's like a huge theme in your chart, even with the 8th house moon. Like 8th house moon also is like people who have that, especially like in a water sign like Cancer, they tend to go through like these different like, I need to spit one more time. Like they tend to go through like these very distinct, right? Periods of time emotionally where if you like compared yourself like you can like literally divide your life into different eras where you like it's like the snake shedding their skin kind of energy, right? Where like they're so distinctly different. And I know that's the same for like everyone, it's to some degree, but to the 8th house person, like they really go through that on a deeper level. So with relationships, it's very important to have someone who is like very, very solid, and who there's not one doubt in your mind of like who this person is. And of course, like I said before, with the North Node being conjunct the descendant, which descendant is like relationships and all that, everything's gonna be very, very faded. Like all your important relationships will be very, very faded. And yeah, so with that said, have going kind of going back to like the ascendant and that kind of Sagittarian energy, it's like how the question is like how do you have a life where those more adventurous, you know, individual like individualistic properties or parts of you, like, how's that side being met while also the side that like craves stability, craves emotional stability, craves like physical stability. That's like one big question. So like in love, kind of going back to that, super important to have that solid person, but also that person, who's because like we have to speak about like the Gemini energy, also like a person who where there's like a real connection, like a mental connection between you guys. With your Juno, which like represents it represents what your kind of like ideal partner is, I guess you could call it like that. So in Gemini, it's someone who's very also there's like some level of like fun and like curiosity, And yeah, it's very important to not like to be with someone solid, but someone who's also like just really curious about the world and wants to explore with you and this, that, and the fourth. Let's see here. So the Mercury in Aries, and that's very interesting how that kind of, let's see, it's opposite, it's square Pluto, so it's Venus. Okay, so it's also squaring Pluto, although not elementally, but it's still squaring it. That so that can create someone who, and this kind of goes back to the Chiron and Gemini, right? Who like Mercury is how you communicate, how you think. So when it's in Aries, it can create someone or it can have someone be very, very rash and very, very like impulsive in how they communicate. Definitely like a very independent thinker, but someone who talks quickly, who gets like, and this is also with your Uranus on your ascendant, that can be like a very genius energy, right? But like, yeah, so definitely someone who has like ideas that are different than the norm and probably way deeper. And I imagine that could have like brought you some type of like pain when you were younger, because you may have just like said things like said them, because Aries, it doesn't hold back, right? And the fact that it's opposite Pluto, I guess it might tea first. That can create clashes, right? That can create clashes between where not only through your your relationships and all that are you meeting your shadow, but also through your your communication and your very unique way of thinking, right? And talking. So one second. And I have this little book I look at sometimes. It just gives me like keywords. I like having it because it's just like gives me like a few keywords. So it says illogical reasoning, nervous tension, rushing into commitments before considering actions, like Mercury and Pluto in adverse aspect. So yeah, it's like it's also like on a higher level, because remember, everything in astrology, every aspect I'm telling you about, there's like the low manifestation and then there's like the integrated one. And when you have lots of like opposition and squares, it just shows that you're like an old soul and you're someone who, like all great healers, they go through like difficult like experiences early in life, right? And then there's that dark night of the soul, and then there's that revival, and then there's that healing, and then there's that taking that healing and kind of going out in the world and making your dharma, your life purpose based off of that, right? But what can happen with Mercury and Pluto more like psychologically is that there can be like an internal struggle with like kind of how you rationalize and communicate your thoughts and concepts, right? And there can be like a real intensity, and what can happen is that it's an opposition, so it can attract like very, very like intense arguments with different people. But yeah, it makes you like a very, very like deep psychological thinker and a very, very complex person. Um, so also like what's really good about this is that you're someone who's a truth seeker. You're very unwilling to just like take things like just as they are, which is even with the South Node in Sagittarius, which I said like sometimes can be a little bit like this is my way or the highway when it comes to like philosophy and ideas. um it's like really about like being open-minded, pretty much, right? And not exhibiting like the lower energy of Sagittarius, which is like the dogmatism, and actually like being more in the higher energy of it, which is more about like I know nothing, like the child's mind, like even if you know like so much stuff, like just continuing to kind of have that idea that I know nothing. I'm always like hearing people out and stuff. But yeah, so yeah, this is really, really good for like anything like related to like research, and your Virgo, your midheaven is in Virgo, so you'll definitely want a career that is contributing to humanity in some type of way. It can be anything from like being a doctor to being a someone who does like something more humanitarian, to a healer, to anything. And Mercury being ruling your midheaven in the fifth house also can speak to art, right? Which, going back to that Mars retrograde, when I spoke earlier about kind of like the need for like a creative outlet. Well, there you go. Your chart is very, very artistic. And here's Esme, the winner of my contest. So yeah, let's see. So so when you have your North Node in the seventh house, it's like a lot of time, and I have this too. It's like it can create someone who in past lives was unwilling to really compromise that much when it comes to relationships, right? They were very, very engaged with their own, what they were doing, which in your case, with Uranus could have been like you could have been someone who's very, very much ahead of their time in terms of like the way you thought, and you still have this today, right? Because your South Node is on your ascendant, which also typically means that the way that you are, like your outer personality, is like maybe even the way you look is very similar in this lifetime than to, I don't want to say to like let's say like the lifetime that you're really dealing with karmically, like if it's one or a few, whatever. So it's about like letting go of any kind of like ego centered actions, and learning to kind of like compromise a little bit more in relationships, right? Now that, so I always talk about this axis of Aries and Libra, first and seventh house, of like the high end on the one side, which is codependency, right? Like I can't live without you, like that kind of stuff. And then on the other side, it's like I'm not willing to make any sacrifices for that person. Like it is all about me. Like if you're not in line with what I'm doing, then peace, right? So it's important to understand that, because yeah, I mean that's a karma. Now with the Sagittarius, lacking air, so this can be a little bit difficult. It's also about a karmic quest, right? Because remember, the North Node is like where it's like the karmic mountain you're trying to climb, that's been very difficult for you to climb in past lives. So it's about like really like learning to see, like I was talking about before, seeing things from other people's viewpoints, like really being willing to, from anyone, right? And also like getting better with the throat chakra, and communicating your truth, and kind of mastering that art. Because there can be like a tendency to be a little bit scattered, you could say. So yeah, it's all about like learning to kind of like you might have like these grand philosophies, right, that are amazing and that you've spent lifetimes kind of developing, and you come in this lifetime, and certain things like astrology that are obviously real, and whatever else you're interested in, you know like come naturally to you, right? Like you see how many people like they just don't get it. So but it's about like developing the ability to communicate your ideas in a way that's able to help other people. Does that make sense? Um so yeah, and then that's where the Chiron comes in conjunct the North Node. It's like literally someone who's meant to be a healer. And like I said, it could be in someone who's like a relationship counselor type, like family, what's it called, like family and marriage counselor type thing, or someone who just is a business person, and who headaches, come here, Felix, who like he is healing themselves within different types of partnerships, like business partnerships, like romantic relationships, clients. Like if you're like doing something like what I'm doing, this is a 7th house relationship, right? Like if you're seeing clients, so that's very, very important. So vertex also, at 29 degrees in Cancer. So I like to think of vertex like when it comes to relationships, it's kind of like it's like we have a Scorpio cat. It's kind of like your ascendant in relationships. So in Cancer, it's very much about like being a very, very, very soft, kind of like almost like the mother, like kind of like being a very like nurturing person in relationships. Felix, come here, baby. Felix, come here. Your little cat paws. Cat paws, cat paws, cat paws, cat. So okay, that was halftime. That was the Super Bowl halftime show. So yeah, that's important. But yeah, as I said before, uh, like the 8th house is very important. And with the vertex there, it's like it's kind of speaking to like how these like very intense, like emotional, like death, rebirth, transformation, kind of experiences you go through are very, very important, and they're very intense, right? But they're very, very key to your highest growth. So your doorway to higher awareness can be, and sexuality also is something that plays a role into your chart in different ways. Because like like a lot of times like Mars and Scorpio, they have they're very, very sexual, and like in a 12th house, they can like it can kind of create people who, like, and I already talked about this, but I'm just kind of I was kind of go back and forth and add to what I said before. It can create people who like make mistakes in that area. Now the fact that it's retrograde, I told you, is like kind of like a saving grace in this scenario. Um, but yeah, sexuality is definitely something. It's definitely an area of life where you can like experience like a very, very high, like you can like it's something that you can like work with spiritually in a very, very intense yet beautiful romantic way. And being a Taurus, which is like all about the senses and touch and all that, I mean it kind of makes sense. um but yeah, like a little bit more about like the 8th house moon. There's like when we talk about the moon, like the emotional need, like what you need to be happy. I talked about family. I talked about like being in touch with your own emotions, being able to like with the people you're around to express your emotions like in a very authentic way. So like this kind of brings me to that opposition of Sun and Saturn, right? Because the Sun is the father typically, and what can happen when Sun's opposite Saturn is that there can be like a level of like how you say it, like you can somehow feel a little bit like restricted, like especially like until your Saturn return. That's usually when the inhibiting effects start to kind of wear off. But yeah, it can really create lots of like restrictions in like you fully um fully like expressing that energy of high Taurus. Does that make sense? So a lot of times with this, there's like a father who may have been like absent or weak. And what's interesting about your chart is that like, you know, the relationship between Cancer and Taurus is, or can yeah, Cancer and Taurus, which is mother and father, is so good. So maybe like their relationship or their worldviews were like in line, but that doesn't mean that like your relationship with them was perfect. Now, I had a client recently who had something similar, and when I spoke with her live, what she communicated to me was more that it was more about she's like, I swear to God, like all summer, like my eyes look like I can't do anything about them. Like they just always look so like like squinty, and like my nose is always scratching, and scratching everywhere. Whatever. But yeah, it can create like an energy where like yeah, like the father kind of didn't really meet the needs, I guess you could say. So it makes someone typically who has like and I was talking about my client. So for her, like she has similar aspects, but she has great relationship with her parents, right? But for her, she grew up very poor, so she like just they just weren't around because they were both working so much, you know. So and she also had, I think she did she have a kid? What was her moon? Was it Cancer or Leo? It was one of those two, but they're both so sensitive, Cancer and Leo, right? So it was like she had her needs and she had a sibling, but the sibling was completely different energy, and the sibling like didn't have any of that stuff because the sibling like didn't have the same emotional requirements, right? So as a Cancer moon baby, you really, really need that closeness. So if the parents, you know, weren't around in different ways, um, whatever it is, whether it was something traumatic or whether it was something more just circumstantial, it can create someone who had to like really step up earlier in life, like maybe grow up fast, if you want to call it that. So a lot of times it creates like a very serious individual. Um, and someone who like where it's like you're constantly like, and this is like something that lots of really successful people have, just so you know, like aspects with Saturn, because what it does is it forces you to grow up fast, but and it forces you to like gain this like maturity, this responsibility, this determination. But then when the Saturn return comes, it Saturn return slash like when Saturn goes over the sun for the first time, which for you, let's see, probably would have been like, it's like literally like opposite. Yeah, so it would have been around like 14-ish years old, around that age. Um, you're forced to like kind of like take a role that most kids don't take. But that's not always the case. It can also be something like where, because Saturn is like kind of like the patriarch, so like a parent that was very, very critical. And like I said, like the son is usually the father. It's not always that case. So like a very, very critical father, which in turn makes one critical of themselves. Um, there can, and also like Saturn, it's linked to like melancholy, like usually like more with the moon, but even with the sun. So there can be like sun being like your sense of self. It can create like poor self-esteem, feeling like unlovable. So yeah, basically like it's an energy of someone who kind of had to like, yeah, like learn like that, those Taurus kind of like internal values, being your own kind of like, yeah, learning like almost like, yeah, be your own father kind of, right? And it's, yeah, super, super good for achievement to have this. Um, so yeah, let's see what else. And then Sun, let's see what the Sun, like Sun and Mars. I mean, Sun opposite Mars is like, it's different. But that one's like 9 degrees, so it's not gonna be as strong. But it says tendency to be quarrelsome, combative, headstrong, lacks staying power, hasty, takes risks. But that's like, it's in aura, but it's not. It's like an opposition is 180 degrees. This one is like 189. So it's like it's not like super super exact, but it's still Mars in Sun. So when we speak about like kind of that 12th house Mars in general, um, it can create someone who like yeah, who can be very impulsive and can get in fights with people, um like kind of, yeah, very combative energy. So there's definitely a need when you have this to have like also a physical outlet, like even now, something, you know where you're able to kind of get up any pent up like kind of like anger or energy like that. But like really like I see like lots of like athletes that have like this kind of aspect because it makes someone super competitive. Um, and yeah, like early in life, there's usually like lots of like anger, drama, stuff like that. Bottled up energy, right? And then I talked about that before, how it can just kind of explode after. So yeah, it's all. This is another one that speaks to like that need for that creative outlet, which can literally be like the most healing thing. This is why I tell everyone to get their children's charts done, because I can say this stuff earlier in life, and it can really help parents like guide their children in the right direction. So what else? Yeah, so like watching out for like being like overly assertive, and yeah, like there can be like, especially with the Mercury square Pluto, there can be like lots of arguments, lots of fights, stuff of that nature. And yeah, it's actually very good to have this for like any kind of like field that's very competitive, like business, like any kind of like high pressure environment. Like you'll really thrive in them. And being a Taurus, you'll have that solidity, which when I talk about Taurus, they're like, I always talk about like how they have this superpower of being able to kind of like somewhat like be the same person day after, like have that consistency. Not that you're like always the same. Of course, with your moon and Cancer, your emotions, will be like up and down. Another thing about moon and Cancer, two things. Living by water is very good. Being by water in general is super important for like Cancer moons. Even like taking baths, just like being in water will really help you get in touch with the emotions. Especially with Mars and Scorpio too. So water is very important to like drink a lot of water too. And my mind just slipped away, but it'll come back to the other thing. What was I gonna say? Slip my mind. Whatever. It'll come back if it's meant to come back. Um. So yeah, like your whole chart is just like this huge initiation to like it creates these crises, right? Where it's like you have no choice, and this is all the divine. This is all spirit. This is the whole point. Is that with if you didn't have all these aspects, you'd live. You wouldn't be pushed into doing the work that you. I don't know you, but I have a feeling that you've done a lot of work on yourself. Um, and that things have gotten a lot smoother and easier since the Saturn return. Yeah, I keep seeing this thing with like sexuality, and I'm just like curious. And I usually don't even really talk much about it because it's kind of, I don't know. I feel like weird talking about it because it's like it's sex, and it's like I'm a guy, and I don't know. I always feel weird talking about sex with female clients, which are most of my clients. But yeah, there's something there about that for sure. There's definitely something there that's very unique to what I've seen with the fact that it's retrograde, the Mars. So yeah. Yeah. Let's see. So part of fortune in Libra in the 11th, that's kind of speaking about how like friendships, groups of people, like-minded people, you'll find like tons of joy and really be at ease when you have like these very balanced and like fair um friends, friend groups, and also like organizations of any kind. Um and yeah, like you find lots of joy when there's like a sense of harmony in your life, but like it's in the 11th house, so it's like more related to like helping humanity, but also like like friends and groups, right? And like you'll feel very good when you're like in these types of groups, and you guys are all like pushing towards like a common goal that's like really helping the world, which goes back to your, you know, your midheaven. Let me pop up some asteroids and stuff. I'll share the screen for a second. I think I know what it is. I think it's my beard gets to this point, like just from pure laziness and not shaving. And I think it just literally in the last 2 hours got to the point where it's just like scratchy and annoying. I'm definitely too lazy to go shave it right now. So okay. My phone was, or my headphones are making noise from my phone. Okay, so don't don't worry about what all this means. I just want to see if you had the nebula on your midheaven, which I think it's the nebula. Yep. So okay, I'm just gonna keep mental notes of like which ones I see. What's that? This one I just haven't because I was told by a psychic that I'm a Hawthorne alien. So I don't really, I just added that one yesterday. It was more just for fun. Okay. Yeah, so your sun moon midpoint in the seventh house, that's kind of like where the merging of it's no surprise, it's conjunct your north node. It's literally kind of like another cherry on top. Speaking to how, you know, you're like the coming together of your sun and your moon, um your masculine and your feminine is through like these like karmic relationships and the shadow work that they bring, and finding like that real you know, like the kind of relationship. Also another thing about the relationships with the Gemini is like you'll want to like have, like I said before, like have like the intellectual connection, but like someone who's like really down to heal, because the Chiron there is gonna like you can't have someone who's just not willing to do the work, basically, because like your relationships are gonna be so faded and so like so dynamic, like it's gonna be so like, or it probably has been, and I don't know if you're married or single or whatever, but like there's like this real like karma, you know, like when I do compatibility charts for people that have like natal charts like you, like I tend to see like certain trends with like the composite charts, where it's like it can be pretty heavy energy, but it's like really based on like balancing out the past life energies, if that makes sense, you know, like and making things right, because maybe like in one lifetime one person was doing one thing or being one way while the other person's doing another. Ooh, shit. Guess who has Antares rising? I can't believe I didn't even notice at the start. Wow. Okay, so this is very important. So this is one of the four royal stars. Um, so to have that as your rising, it's 932 and 1003, so it's within 0.30. Okay, so I'm just making mental notes of like all the ones. Like the nebula is basically like one of these you know, fixed stars that it speaks about like seeking truth, and kind of like how in your career you're really gonna wanna do that. Now to have Antares on your ascendant, and let me just before I get into that, let's see, 21 51. Ooh, is that yeah, okay, so that is really intense. So you have Serpentis, which is like one of the, okay, so this is a really intense energy, and last time I told someone about this, like they never even got back to me. I literally thought it was like the best reading I ever did. I never even heard back from her. I don't know, maybe she's busy, but I thought it was like a perfect reading. um but okay, so Serpentis and Antares. Gotcha. Okay, let's go back to my face. So okay, so your Mars is in the 12th house, and let's see my notes on Serpentis. It's like I can't pronounce the name. It's like Uniculi or something. Unu. Kali. And that is like basically like one of the darkest like energies, but it's also very esoteric. So this is like it can be like very violent to have Mars conjunct Serpentis. Already like it's kind of like it can bring out like the worst energies of Scorpio. So like violence, lying, crime, stuff like that, right? But just like Algol, which people give like such a bad rap to, which was Algol. No, Algol's not doing anything. There's also a very high spiritual side to it, right? Also it says here in my notes that it's important to drink mint tea, and a teaspoon of olive oil 3 times per week would be very helpful. Okay, and also the external use of Vaseline would also be very, very helpful. Very random stuff. But like, there's also like with this energy, it's like very, very. It can be very, very spiritual, right? It's like the neck of the serpent. So it can be very like destructive, dangerous. You have to really watch out for your health for sure. But when you move into that more spiritual energy, it can be one of these. It can just be like extreme, like the high Scorpio. So it really kind of makes that Mars, like I really am excited to hear about your Mars energy, your Scorpio Mars, and kind of like what that's been. So it says here, it does in some measure merit the black reputation it gained from the debasers of astrology. For those who will abuse and misuse the gifts available here are as deserving of being struck off the register as any corrupt doctor. But those who here's the big part. But those who will give service in healing or teaching of what they receive have only good fortune to expect when this shines on them. This Unu Kalai. This half of the snake, by the way, to the man's left, is now called the serpent. Okay, so you see what I'm saying? It's it can give like wisdom, deep spiritual wisdom, but also like it can have like an evil influence. So people who like have this, and who aren't like, and also you have to watch out for like poisoning, like danger from poisoning. So substances you really have to watch out for. I see that's also with the sun in or the moon in Neptune. You have to watch out for like for substances for sure. That's that. And then there's Antares. This is the most powerful one. So you're part of the club. I'm Regulus rising, you're Antares rising. So Antares is a very militant energy, right? It's a like daredevil, like it's like very like it's very like in your face. Like it's like the king of the underworld energy, right? Very headstrong. And yeah, basically like let's see. It can be quite violent. But at the same time it can be super super philosophical and just extremely charismatic, right? So it's another thing in your chart where it's like with great power comes great responsibility, right? Lots of like very very famous people have something like this, like a very close conjunction. And yeah, it's a very very strong one. So let's see what it says with ascendant. Well, it says so, ascendant conjunct Antares, riches and honor, military honor and preferment, violent sickness, benefits seldom last, mental alertness, strategic ability, and courage to make daredevils. Okay, but I don't like this. There's another site that gives me something way better. I'm just getting more and more into all the fixed stars. Here it is. So keywords for Antares: intense, dramatic, militant, fiery, passionate, obsessive, compulsive, fast and furious, spicy, awesome, eminent, primal, demanding, ruthless, ambitious, survivors, trailblazers, combative. I can't read all these. Instinctive, tyrannical, high sexed, provoking, daredevils, self-sabotaging, all things that hot-headed. So when you have your ascendant, though, yeah, it says riches and honors. So yeah, it can be ruthless, but also it can be just very, very strong and good for like leadership and stuff like that. Let's see one other list. Okay. And maybe my eyes are getting like this from looking at the screen too much. Maybe I need to turn on my FLUX, dim the light a little bit. Yeah, so that's that. I didn't speak about Jupiter. Wow, I skipped Jupiter. What a bad boy I am. So Jupiter in the second house is a beautiful placement. It is the financial guardian angel. Now, I've had so many clients, and they all say similar things, and you have Neptune there too. So these are two different things. So Jupiter in second house, people always say the same shit. It's like, oh, I lost my job, but then 2 weeks later, I got a better one. It's like almost, it's very, very good for abundance, like financial abundance. And it's in Capricorn, so it's like boss energy. Like that's like really, really, really like ultimate boss energy. Very good for like integrity, seeking professionals, like high professional recognition and status. And yeah, it's like a boss energy. But then when you have so it kind of like protects you like like financially and just in terms of like making sure that you're always taken care of in that realm way of life. Now Neptune there is interesting because it's opposite your moon. So we already talked about it a little bit, but it can make one, to kind of push it further, have kind of an unrealistic assessment of their own self-worth, but Jupiter will give you like a very positive assessment of it. So they kind of like counterbalance each other. But there's a big need to like link monetary values with spiritual values. um and not be like overly obsessed with the money, right? Like to really find the balance between like, yeah, of course you're a Taurus and you have energies of success. Midheaven, in Virgo is also like very like like someone who can be very multifaceted in their career, very hardworking, really liking order at work, likes to get recognized for all the little things they do. But it's important also, to balance the two together, basically. So I already talked about Uranus in the first house, like, like the urge to express yourself in that like kind of dynamic, like very individualistic fashion that's very like unconventional. And it's also very good for leadership. Like, you have tons of leadership energy in your chart. Tons of leadership energy. And then finally, we will end on Black Moon Lilith. So it is in Pisces. Interesting how it's in Pisces in your Cancer moon. So Black Moon Lilith isn't a planet. It is it's a potential. So it's in the fourth house. So it would say that this energy might come out like within your own family system. There can be some like confusion with IC there. There can be like some level of like confusion around childhood, around like kind of like there can be like either like an over idealization of childhood or like an under idealization, or even like just like a not having a memory of childhood. But overall, Black Moon Lilith here, in Pisces, I always think of that as like at your this is like you at your worst, how there can be like a tendency to like self-victimize, use like your high emotional IQ to kind of like get what you want, stuff like that. And the thing about Black Moon Lilith is that, and it's like understanding it is getting you like it's like understanding your self-defeating behaviors so that you can like conquer them, basically, right? But one other thing about Black Moon Lilith in Pisces is that there's this tendency to escapism, whether it's through drugs or alcohol, or whether it's like, when the emotions get too intense. Like with, I love this chart. It's all coming together. This is a complicated chart, by the way. This is one that I would deem as a more complicated one because there's so many, there's some charts, it's just like, they just go together like, and it's not good or bad. It's just like, it's like the puzzle, it's a harder puzzle to solve, but I solved it. And we'll speak further about it. But like basically, sometimes there can be this like, this not disgust, but like this like like despising, like kind of accepting the emotional side of your nature, if that makes sense, right? Like shying away from deep connections, like believing that you're like too unstable, and yeah, just kind of like, it kind of goes with like the Cancer moon, like, because like another thing I didn't mention about Cancer moon is that Cancer moon is so sensitive that once it gets hurt one time, it's like the crab that goes back in its shell and doesn't want to trust again. So that Black Moon Lilith can kind of play that theme a little bit too, right? So it's very important for Cancer moons, like, because with your chart, I would presume that you've been hurt in relationships. So it's important to kind of know that, like, to like, take the risks of going back out, and and 1 second, I should see this rating. Yeah, like going back out and taking more risks in that realm of life, basically. What else can I say about that? 1 second. I want to find this article that I always talk about. Yeah, so I think like the thing with escapism is definitely there too, like escaping into the fantasy world, like when things get rough, just like kind of going into like kind of dreamland, in whatever way that shows up. For some people, it's like video games, content, binging, just and kind of just like escaping, like feeling the emotions. Now I'll end it with this. And thank you so much for being so patient. I always try, like, I'm literally like doing these readings as fast as I can. But yeah, like, 1 second. Okay, where is it? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Oh, here you are. It's so cool you have Antares rising. I would, if I were you, like look more into Antares and try to like connect with that star. It's one of the four royal stars of Persia. It's badass, super badass. And it could also be like, like fame. Like fame can come from having like Antares or Regulus rising. But it's not within 0.15, but it's still very, very close. So yeah, definitely, like, might not be like world fame, but like definitely like recognition. Now where am I? Where are you, Jesse? Okay, here it is. Okay, so it says about Pisces, Black Moon Lilith. So this one, it links each to a fear. Fear, literally what I just said. Fear of vulnerability. Fear of being hurt that leads to emotional walls, obvious or subtle. On the other end of the spectrum, they can trust way too fast, which leads to a pain that reinforces the belief they need to protect themselves. Healing comes from relying on intuition and gut feeling to decide who to trust and accept that potential pain as part of the equation. What a perfect ending to this reading. What a perfect ending. Very climactic. opposite anticlimactic. Climatic. I don't think I've ever said that, the word climatic. Anyways, hope you enjoyed. Amazing reading. I will get this put up ASAP and watch as many times as you need to, and then we can schedule the follow-up. All right.